What is up, fam? Welcome back to the Well That's Good podcast. Y'all, I am so excited for today. I'm fangirling, honestly, because I am so excited to talk to our guest today. She is no stranger. You guys have probably seen her, if not worshipped alongside of her. She is in Maverick City. She leads Gyra. I mean, come on. That's huge. She has been a part of so many great things through Maverick City, and just she is an incredible person. She also has a new album out called Journey that is 22 tracks of just great stuff. So I cannot wait to interview her on this new album and also get to know her story more because, like I said, we know her voice, but I can't wait to get to know her. So without further ado, welcome to the Well That's Good podcast, Naomi Raine. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be with you. I've been wanting this for many moons.
Well, we are pumped. The feeling is very mutual. I was just telling Naomi before she popped on that I saw her at the Kayla Fan Awards, and I was like so close to going and introducing myself, but there were so many people, and I was like, okay, better not. And look at how good God is. Full circle. Now you're on the podcast, and we get more time to talk. So I'm stoked. Super excited. Well, hey, I ask everybody the same question when they get on the Well Let's Go podcast. It's the first question of every podcast. It's a little intimidating, but it's, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever been given?
The best piece of advice I've ever been given is from Kirk Franklin.
Let's go.
Now, okay, but I do want to preface this by saying, maybe if you asked me like 3 months ago, I would have said something else. But right now, this is the piece of advice that I'm living on right now. But it was from Kirk Franklin, and he said, don't ever get so comfortable in who you are that you think that God needs you.
Wow.
And he was basically saying, like, God doesn't need you. He can use anybody. And you just happen to be the one who he's lending songs to now, who he's speaking through right now. He said, but there will come a time in your life and in your career where there will be someone else that comes, and you've got to be just already in that mindset that like God can use and choose whoever he wants. And I love that because, and not that I was thinking that I am the only person God can use, but I think it's so good to set your heart there and like in gratefulness of like, man, like this is a blessed moment and this is wonderful, but it won't last. And that's okay, you know, and so whatever's next is next, but what's now is now. And I'm just loving that advice. It's keeping me,
I love that.
It's like guardrails, you know, super nice.
That's so good. I remember when my family used to have a TV show, and my mom would always say, she was like, hey, y'all, when this is over, it doesn't change anything about who we are. It doesn't change our life. And she talked about how, like, a lot of people in 15 minutes of fame, if you will, like, when they get that, then they start to change everything about who they are. And then when they start to see it ending, they try to grab onto all these different things and do all these different things. And they are actually starting to lose the essence of who they are, you know, and they actually start to become more empty in the search of trying to gain everything. And my mom would just always encourage us with that. And it was so good because by the time that ended, we all, you know, welcomed in a new season of life. And it wasn't less than, it was just different than, you know. And you're right. God uses different people, and I think, you know, sometimes he even uses you just in a different way, you know, in different seasons. So I love that. I saw a quote. I don't know where you said it, but you're talking about, maybe it was a car chat with Kirk Franklin. And it was a moment where he gave you another piece of advice about just the duality of being a worship leader and an artist. And I thought that was so good because that is a hard balance for so many people to find. We actually are starting, we're starting a worship band right now. We actually just, by the time this podcast comes out, we'll have released our first EP, which is so exciting.
Yes.
I know. We've been working on this for like 4 years, so we're pumped. But the people who are, you know, doing it with me, the artists, there's incredible people, and they've never done anything like this. Like, their worship has always just been at church. It's been in private moments. And we had this long conversation of like, okay, how do you, you know, not feel like you're performing whenever you're leading, you know? How do you like keep it that genuine? And so I wanted to ask you about that, like just that difference of, hey, you're a worship leader and you're an artist. I mean, you're leading and it's not a perform. What does that look like?
I mean, for me, okay, so boo, 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 boo. I think when I was younger, I've always been writing songs and I've always been like, I'm saying always, like always is always, but since I was 7, I've been writing
Wow.
and doing music. And um, when I shared them, I found that even when I was sharing a song that wasn't a worship song, it always leaned into worship. It was
Yeah.
like I could be singing a Beyonce song and somehow
That's
I'm talking
cool.
about Jesus at the end and I'm like, like leaning into that. I don't know how that happens, but it was always just a natural bent for me. Like this is where I go because this is what's in my heart, like I'm just grateful to God.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, it's never been separate, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And if I'm honest, when Kirk said that to me at the award show, he was like, "Let's go, artists!" Like he was really like going in. I was a little confused because I was like, I did nothing but worship God, and I wasn't confused, but you get what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
I was just worshiping. I think that there's a level of okay, so instead of saying performing, I would say maybe artistry,
It's
right?
good. Yeah.
Which to me, I think if I take it away from like the performing arts and make it more like
Yeah.
visual arts, I think people can palate it better. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Palate. It's more
Hey,
palatable.
it works. It works.
I'm gonna make up a bunch of words today. I just want
They're
you to
all
know it's
welcome.
just my creativity. I'm just going for it. Is that okay?
Oh, that's totally welcome. I mean, why not make
Okay.
up more words? Let's do it.
I promise we'll understand them. But I feel like if we look at it in terms of the visual arts, we look at a canvas, right? And we could like take paint and splash it and throw it on at the canvas, and that would be beautiful, right? And that has a space in terms of what is art and what we've
Yeah.
given to the Lord. Let's say this was a picture we were painting for the Lord. But I think there's something else when you take time and actually paint a subject,
Yeah.
right? And you're going in and maybe you start on the sketch or the outline of it and then you come back in and fill it in with color and then you come back again and start shadowing and now there's greater detail. One is not more valuable than the other.
Yeah.
It's just that one shows number one a level of skill and time
Wow.
that was put into it. There's
Yeah.
an attention and a focus and a detail. And I think that artistry and creativity has been vilified in the church
Hmm.
for a long time
Hmm.
because I think that we know that when we see something good, we can start to worship
Right.
ourselves,
Right.
as if like we like that it's all us. And I think that there's a space for that even too.
Yeah.
And I'm not like this. And this is why I feel like the Lord is bringing me out of like, like kind of like false humility and like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
nothing. Like you're not nothing.
It's
There's a
good.
level of time, skill, and energy that's been put into this that you're now crafting this for the Father. It's a gift to him.
It's
If
good.
I was making my parents a meal, I wouldn't just throw them something together.
Yeah.
I would put my energy into it and put my heart into it so that it would be beautiful, not acceptable, because he accepts even the splash paint and the thrown
It's
together
good.
thing. And this is what I believe about our worship, if that
It
makes
makes so much
sense,
sense.
right?
Yeah.
Um, but I think there is something to crafting, putting together,
Yeah.
that sculpting and making sure you get all and so there's skill, there's rehearsal, there's time and practice put into it. So to answer the
I
question
love it.
after I've said all of
I love
that,
it.
I think I think that the performance aspect is more the artistry. It's
It's
the
good.
it's the presentation.
Yeah.
It's not putting it on a garbage lid. It's putting it on a plate,
Yeah.
maybe not a paper plate, which is my new single that just dropped.
Which
But
is so good.
like
Yeah.
it's not about it's like a shameless plug. But like it's about like presentation. And I think that some of us believe that worship, if especially if it's spontaneous, if we haven't like that it comes from nowhere. I think that there's still a level of like, oh no, I bring everything that I have and I
Yeah.
lay it down at his
It's
feet,
good.
And I lastly want to say this. I'm sorry, I know I'm
Oh,
talking a
keep
lot, but
talking. It's good. All grown up, I love to be active. One of my favorite sports is actually basketball. I honestly miss it. It's hard to get a game going, but it's so much fun. And really, while a lot has changed over the years, a lot has stayed the same. Staying active and basketball are two of the things that I do still love. And every now and then, I can get Christian and even take Honey out there to the court to get a little game going. It's pretty much the cutest thing ever, seeing Honey hold a basketball. But with fitness and health being a priority in my life, I'm always looking for ways to simplify that because I have never been one who likes to take a lot of vitamins or supplements to fill health gaps. So not long ago, I gave AG1 a try. Many of you have heard about it, but it's just so great. So I'm going to tell you more about it. The taste is great and it goes down really smooth, which is pretty impressive with all the things that they have packed in there. They have 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food source ingredients, including a multivitamin, multimineral, probiotic, green superfood blend, and more. So if maintaining energy is a goal for you, this is super great option for you. AG1 is probably the perfect thing for you to get. I got Christian to try it too, and he loves it as well. I remember at the beginning of summer, we actually took his family on a trip and had some of our travel AG1 packs, and they ended up loving it as well. So that's great, and it's also great, like I just mentioned, for travel. The travel packs are great to carry along because sometimes it's hard to eat healthy whenever you travel or just even get anything healthy in you. It's also lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, and contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting great. So to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you an immune-supporting free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 for your travel packs with your first purchase if you visit athleticgreens.com/woe today. Again, just simply visit athleticgreens.com/woe to take control of your health and give AG1 a try.
But I think, you know, the whole Cain and Abel
Yep.
thing, right? Like Cain brought a sacrifice that God did not ask for.
Yep.
Abel brought what was acceptable. And I think that acceptable is different than like skillful
Yeah.
and excellent.
Wow.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? I think that we can start to think that because it is something that is beautifully prepared and worked on, that it's no longer acceptable because it's fleshly. But in my Bible, God says that He created the heavens and the earth, and then He said it is good.
Yeah.
I think there's something to making something and going, wow, that's
Yeah.
good, you know? And so I don't know. I think I'm trying to, and I'm not saying I'm there all the
Yeah.
way. It's where I'm trying to get to a space where I'm not completely judging what I give to Him. It's
Yeah.
not for me, it's for Him. And I'm hoping that it is acceptable. But because Jesus' blood was shed, it's acceptable.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about that anymore, about being rejected. All right, I'm about to get into a
Come
whole
on.
thing. But
Hey, girl, you do not have to stop here. Everybody is loving this. I know people listening are like, yes. And I just love how you lay out even just worship. Like, and you're going to so many different places of the Bible, and it's so meaningful to you. It's so real to you. And I also love how you said you can worship to Beyonce and somehow it ends with Jesus, because you'll love this. So we were recently just in a small friend group circle and worshiping, and I'm not a worship leader. I was just worshiping in the circle, and it's just my friends. And so I was about to take us into another song based off of where we were at, and I just started singing. I was so serious. I thought it was a worship song, and it just came out. I was like, the way you hold me, hold me. And I started singing Justin Bieber Holy. And it was so funny. I was just singing like eyes so close, singing, and someone just starts laughing and say, are you singing Justin Bieber? And I was like, oh my gosh, I totally am singing Justin Bieber. But I was just worshiping. And I think when you have a heart posture to worship, it's just like, man, like it just comes out of you. Like whatever you're talking about, whatever it is, somehow it ends in Jesus. Whatever you're even hearing and listening to, somehow it relates to Jesus. And it's so cool when you have the eyes to see that. You see it. It's awesome. I love it. So obviously you have just a huge heart for worship in general. I've thought so much about this. So tell me where all that was birthed. I mean, you said at 7 years old, you're already writing songs. What was that like when you were young? Did you know that this was kind of the calling on your life, or were you just kind of doing it for fun?
No, I knew it forever, but I still loved it, if that made sense. Like I never felt forced at all. I just felt like, what? This is the family business. Like we just, I imagine if like I grew up on a farm or something, and you know, this is what we did. If we sold eggs and whatever in order to make money, like then you would just be getting like, I don't know what it is. I don't know anything about
Getting
farms,
the eggs,
but
getting
I
the milk.
imagine.
Yes, we got a little farm at our house.
Oh yeah, milking
Yeah,
the
milking the
cows,
cow.
right? Like I'm like, I would be doing all of that stuff because that's just the family business. My parents are worship leaders, songwriters, singers,
Cool,
they're artists.
cool.
They've always been since the my mom was carrying me and they were traveling and singing all over the world. And so this is just what I grew up into. And I was like, I feel like I had no choice and I got this honestly,
It's
you know.
awesome.
I grew up in rehearsals. I watched my parents writing songs and working on them and rehearsing. They sang together in a duo,
Cool.
and they led worship at church. And so I grew up with at-home rehearsals. It is not foreign. It was not foreign for my brother and I to have the TV on like 100 because my parents were downstairs singing and rehearsing their
That's
songs.
awesome.
And so I remember like they used to sing a lot of one style of music. And then I remember when they started the song, "This is the air I breathe.
Come on.
This is the air of your holy breath." I was like, wait, what? This is different. That is like, it started to bring me in. So I'd be washing the dishes and listening to them rehearse and be like in a full worship moment with the Lord and just like encountering him. And so I grew up around it and I
That's
always knew
awesome.
that like this is what I wanted to do. That doesn't mean I didn't have a plan B, C, and D,
Yeah.
but thank God I didn't need to do those. But yeah, I always knew that this was my life, my
That's cool.
calling, and I've just always loved it.
That's awesome. So speaking of plan B, C, and D, I did read somewhere that you went to culinary school, which maybe that's why palatable, was that the word, was on your mind, because
Yes.
you know how to put together a plate. So how did that happen? Like, and where did this shift from like, okay, I'm in culinary school, now I'm like back to leading worship? What was that season of your life like?
Honestly, I was pregnant with my daughter, April, and I was staying home more often. And then I think through the season that I had her, maybe the first 6 months of having her, all I watched was the Food Network.
Same,
That was
same.
it. Sadie, it was really bad. And I realized I was like, oh, I love that. I like that. I started to go out and just so cooking, like I'd always loved to cook, but it wasn't like something I actually thought I could do. I think that me going to culinary school was me proving to myself that I could do
That's
something
cool.
that I was
That's
afraid of,
cool.
you know, like you can do this and you can learn how to do this and put it
Yeah.
together and create what you see when you go to a restaurant or what you're seeing on this TV
Yeah.
because this is all you're doing. I don't think that my daughter watched Dora until way later. Like there were no kid shows. There was just Food Network, Bobby Flay, Emerald,
Yes.
like everybody, Rachel Ray, all
That's
day and
awesome.
night. And I went to culinary school and I learned how to cook. And I I decided that I would never work in a restaurant when I did my externship. And it was just so fast
Yeah.
paced. I wanted to do like corporate
Yeah.
dining or catering. I would do that. Maybe I would have my own restaurant and so like create the
Yeah.
meals and have someone else cook. But me as like the sous chef or the
No, not
mm-mm.
working. Okay, well, not to get like too spiritual, but again, if you have the IC, but do you see a lot of correlation with just what you were doing there in the kitchen and worship? Because I mean, even with what you were saying at the beginning about the artwork that it is, the putting together, and even the putting together of a plate and the creativity of what you're making, and then offering it to someone as a gift. I mean, I feel like it's so spiritual.
100%. I learned, and I'll just take you through some of it. First of all, the way that they run kitchens, like that whole methodology is very
Hmm.
military like. So you need to come, you need to have your uniform on,
Hmm.
shoes, top to bottom. I'm talking about hat, tie, you know, and everything. Then they check you. You line
Wow.
up in the morning and you have to be on time. You cannot be late. Um, you line up in the morning and the chef inspects your outfit
Wow.
because it's a safety thing. It's literally like armor for you,
Wow.
you know. And so you have to have two side towels and an apron on and all of that, and it has to be tied correctly because if it's tied too loosely, somebody can trip and
Wow.
fall, slip and fall. Like the kitchen is a very dangerous place, and so you have to be sure that you have that. We got a knife kit, right? And so we had all of our knives, and you have to sharpen the knives. You have to make sure that your tools are ready. There's
Wow.
so much prep. They call it mise en place, right? So like before you even start cooking, you have to have everything in place that you need. You know how
Wow.
we cook at home when we're making something, and then we
Yeah.
go like when you need green peppers, then you cut
Yeah.
them up and then throw them in, and then it's like, oh, I need milk, and so you're running to the that's not the case in culinary school. Like everything is in place so that when you're cooking, you're not waiting,
Wow.
because procedure is king. Procedure is
Wow.
king even over
Wow.
ingredients. And so think about it like this. So when you make cookies, you're supposed to cream the butter and the sugar together first in order for it to come out and to be the batter consistency of a cookie. And if you don't do that, what you find is that you can't even put it together to really form the
Yeah.
cookies. When you put it in the oven, the ingredients don't mix together. And so what I found in life is that, and the Lord was teaching me through culinary school, that procedure and
Mm.
process and the way you do things are even more important than the actual
Come on.
ingredients,
Yep.
And so like now I'm gluten free. And so I know I can swap out all purpose flour for almond flour, or that might mean I need to add a little other, something else. But the ingredients don't even fully matter. It's the process and the procedure in order to get the product that we would go, oh, that's a
Come
cookie,
on.
and not just some slimy, weird thing.
One thing I love growing up, and even so do to this day, is how close my family is. I gotta say, my people know how to throw a good party, and I like to myself. This past year, for mine and Christian's birthday, we had our friends get together for a karaoke party, and y'all, it was epic. Of course, at every good party, you gotta have good food and good drinks as a must, which is why I love Olipop. It's a new kind of soda, and it really is a fan favorite for me and my people here. It's also just super cute. I mean, look at it. My team at LO loves Olipop so much that we always have to have them on deck, and we are getting more order because this was actually the last one. They have so many flavors to choose from, like vintage cola, classic root beer, orange squeeze, cherry vanilla, strawberry vanilla, and their newest flavor that I got right here, classic grape. One of my personal favorites is the vintage cola, which reminds me a lot of childhood. Whenever we have get-togethers, we'd always have Coke, but now it's great to have a healthier alternative. This is awesome because their vintage cola is like way less sugar than Coke. It actually only has 2 grams of sugar as compared to Coca-Cola, which has 39 grams of sugar. Little difference right there, right? So that's pretty huge because sweetened drinks like soda are the biggest source of added sugars for Americans. That's like the biggest problem that we have with going way overboard with sugar in our daily diet, I think, is soda. So this is a nice alternative. Not only is Olipop good for you, but it's being made with natural ingredients, and it tastes like all the sodas that you grew up with. Olipop is the fastest growing functional beverage brand in America, and will for sure be a party staple for you and your people too. Staying healthy is something super important that our family tries to do, and so it's great to be able to actually read the ingredients and see all the things that they add, like the benefits of prebiotics, plant fiber, and botanicals to support your digestive health. And every can is non-GMO, vegan, paleo, and keto friendly with less than 8 grams of net carbs. And not only are we confident that you'll love Olipop, but they're also so confident that they're going to offer 100% money back guarantee for orders placed through their website. So you can receive 20% off plus free shipping on your order. I recommend trying their variety pack because this is a great way to try all of their delicious flavors. So go to drinkolipop.com/whoa or use the code WHOA at checkout to claim this deal. That's drink, DRINK, Olipop, OLIPOP.com/whoa, WHOA. Olipop can be found in over 8,000 stores actually across the country, including Kroger, Target, Whole Foods, Sprouts, and Wegmans. Yeah, that's so good. And that is the problem because whenever I'm making cookies like homemade, I'll be like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter if you do that first. But it does matter. It does matter. Every little thing matters. That's why you gotta do it right. And so that is so true, especially just in life and ministry and all the things. Like the things that we're doing now, a lot of people might think, oh, it just happens. But no, this is 5 years in the making. This is, a lot of prep work before you actually see the end result, and not even the end result, so you even get started half the time. So talk to me about the process for you, because you put out a song, Pour Me Out, and that song led to some incredible things. So talk about the journey of putting out that song and kind of what it led to.
Pour Me Out was such a special moment. I don't know if you had these experiences, but you ever been like writing a song and you know, like, oh, this is a God thing. I don't know what
Yeah.
he's doing, but it's God. There was a song I worked on with a rapper, and I wrote like a bridge to it. And I asked him, I was like, hey, I really feel like this is a worship song. Like, can
Wow.
I just take this piece? I
Yeah.
wrote it, but I just wanted to be like, can I take this and write to it? So I remember one day I went and sat in my living room. Nobody was home. My husband had the kids out at my mother-in-law's house. And I sat there and I wrote Pour Me Out. Just that, pour me out, all I am
Hmm.
is yours. All I am is yours. And it seemed so simple, like, is that it? Wrote the second part, and then I sent it to my friend. I was like, "Hey, we have to do this." I mean, from the moment that I first sang the song,
Wow.
it literally like everybody was like, "Oh, we need this." There were videos. It was going viral. I went to the Doves, and when I say this, I'm not saying it like we need everything to go viral in order for it to be important,
Yeah.
but the way that the Lord was using it was like, oh, no, this is something that's
Yeah.
bigger than
That's
you.
cool.
It's bigger than New York City, because that's where I'm from. It's bigger than this region. Like, I want to do something with you. So I went out to the Dove Awards to like a new artist showcase, and they asked me to sing it there. And the Lord told me, bring your guitar. And I'm like,
Wow.
why? Because they were actually wanting to listen to the song. So I was supposed to stand there while they
Hmm.
listened to it and just explain or answer any questions they had. But the Lord's like, bring the guitar. And I didn't fight him. I brought the guitar. And so as the song kind of got to the end, like we just all kind of went to worship. And I was able to like play and continue to worship. And that moment ended up being a moment that kind of went viral in the gospel community. And then Todd Delaney was like, I want to record this song. And that literally was like the beginning of what we see
Wow.
now. And I'm just like, how does stuff like that happen? Because it was so random. Even the fact that I was
That's so
going,
cool.
I didn't even like sign up to go. Somebody was like, hey,
Wow.
like the Lord was like, hey, do this. And I didn't want to, but I feel like in those moments of obedience, He allowed the music to get out. Ultimately, it wasn't so that I could have a career. It wasn't for that. It was like, oh, I want to do something, or this is what I'm calling you to, and this is what I want to do. And so I'm going to do what I need to do to get
Yeah.
you to that place and that position. And it literally like snowballed from there. And I'm still like,
What? Yeah.
how did this happen? I would have just been home watching the Food Network.
Hey, that is crazy. And that butter analogy is honestly so good because it's true. It wasn't meant to be in the microwave. And so many people in our generation want to put everything in the microwave. They want to speed the process up, they want to make it happen fast, except for that is not the way that you get a good cookie. You let it sit out and you let it get to room temperature. A natural process. You gotta wait. You gotta wait on it. And so
Yes.
waiting on the Lord in those moments for God to mature you in such a way that you're even ready to make the cookie. God, that analogy could go so far. It's so good. I love it. And yeah, your life has been crazy since. So after that, that's how you got connected to Mav City. Correct me if I'm wrong. And so when you got to be a part of Mav City, did you just jump all in? Because you've sang some big songs with Mav City. My brother, no joke, my brother. He's adopted, but he was adopted when he was 2 weeks old. So he is my brother through and through. He has a massive tattoo on his leg that says Gyra because that song means so much to him. So I mean, like we just
Wow.
love Map City. I mean, I've listened to it in some of the hardest times of the past few years for me, some of the greatest times of the past few years for me. Those have just been our songs. And so when you got to be a part of that, what were those songs to you, and how did that process start?
Yeah, I mean, so I was there from the beginning. So I was there before it was Maverick City. And so I think I that was another one of those processing, waiting, like to see
Yeah.
like, is this legit or what is this? Because we didn't actually plan for this to be any of this. It was a publishing company. So it was more
Wow.
about writing songs and working together. And so we sang at first, after being invited to like a worship set, myself, Dante Bowe, Chandler Moore, Alton Eugene, we were all singing and running. And then Tony, who was the founder of Maverick, he was like, hey, do you want to record songs? So
Wow. I
we
didn't
just
know that.
sang songs and that became Maverick City Volume 1. We had gotten, like, so before we even had a name,
Wow.
we didn't have anything. We were just singing songs and worshiping. Chandler and I, we sang our first duet. We wrote the song and sang it like within 2 days. You're welcome in this place. I sang I Am Loved. Dante did Real Thing, if
Wow.
I'm not mistaken. And what is that? Oh, I won't let go. I won't let, I'll see you
So
after you
good.
are. There just like a bunch of songs that happened like in that moment. And so it just kind of spiraled. And I don't know how I got on the big songs except
Yeah.
Jesus. I do know that, there are moments once you kind of know
Right.
people and what kind of moments they
Right.
can maybe steward or carry that they're just like, hey, you want to do this, you want to do that. But honestly, everything is very equal opportunity.
It's
Everybody gets
good.
an opportunity to come to the table, and some songs just
It's awesome.
come up and they become the thing. And this is, in my mind, I'm like, this is all chance, even though I'm not that silly. I know God
That's
is
right.
working and moving and there's something specific he wants us to do. But when I see songs like Gyra and Promises and what God has done with them, I'm
Wow.
like,
Wow. It's so cool.
I'm
Girl, it's so
grateful.
cool. Well, what's awesome about Mav City too is that it is such a collective of voices. That to me is so powerful that it's not about one person, and that makes it feel like such a move of God. And you're right. Like certain people are just right to steward that moment, and you steward those songs so well. I mean, you lead so well. It's really cool. So let's talk about this new album because this is so exciting and this is your album. 22 tracks. Like what? That is so good. And so tell me about this. Tell me about how it came up, journey, this literal journey that it was to even write some of these songs. Tell me about the card chats, all of it. I just love it.
So, Journey, I started in 2016. And it was because the Lord said to me, I was in prayer one day and I said one of those really corporate prayers. I was like, God, whatever you want to do, I trust you and you have the
Yep.
final say. Like it was one of those prayers. And the Lord was like, okay, so when are you going to tell me how
Mm.
you feel? And I was like, no, I feel that you can do all things but fail. You are more
Yep.
than, I was just like, doing a corporate prayer, and he was like, no, he said, Naomi, you're still wearing a loincloth in my
Wow.
presence. And we were never meant to be that way. You're still covered and you're still praying from a place of
Whoa.
shame. And so that took me out. He was like, dealing with my worship. He was like, you're worshiping from shame. You're still covered up. You're not being real, 100% vulnerable and
Dang.
transparent. And let's work on it. And so I started to write those songs then. And so for me, like Gyra, those songs are like, and I had an album called
Hmm.
Back to Eden. And really, it was supposed to be a double album, like
Hmm.
Journey Back to Eden. So they were supposed to go together because the songs on Journey are like
Hmm.
the BTS of those worship moments that we might see that are more maybe
Yeah.
public or corporate worship. And to me, Journey is a worship
Yep.
album. It's just not
Yep.
the genre. It's the actual walking through things with the Lord. And so I spent a lot of time in my car
Hmm.
talking to the Lord and whoever else would listen about the process that the Lord was taking me through. And I wanted to put that on the album in between the songs because I know that, and you probably know this too because you're on this podcast as well. And so you're talking a lot, and people can
Yep.
misconstrue something you say. No matter how much you say something, they
Yep.
can twist it, turn it to mean whatever they want it to mean. And I wanted to give as much context for some of these songs as possible because I think when you're in the process of figuring things out, like imagine reading the book of Ecclesiastes and not being all the way okay with Jesus. You could really like fall away because it's so like, oh no, it's like everything is vanity, everything's meaningless. It's like, no, if you're not solid, you could get lost. And so I feel like this album is like an Ecclesiastes type of album. And it needed context. And so I needed to put my voice on there at saying some of the process. And I think with inflection and with tone, you can kind of hear where some things are still questions, where some things are solid and I'm sure.
It's
And
good.
I just thought that it was the most responsible thing I could do as somebody who technically I'm a
Yeah.
faith leader, like you're a leader in this space and people are influenced by you. And I just wanted to be
Yeah.
responsible with the platform.
That's so good. I love it. Well, I think that it's so important because I love how you said this isn't supposed to be like a perfect album, wrap a bow on it. It's not supposed to be the, God, you're so good. Like, yes, he's so good. And yes, let's talk about his goodness, but let's also talk about like the reality of what we're walking through right now and how it's hard. And how do we find his goodness in this? And I think the starting the conversation with that, it just deepens people's faith because if you avoid the hard conversations, that doesn't make you any more intimate with God. That doesn't make you any more close to his goodness. And I love it was so funny. I was watching you and Priscilla on the car chats, and she said you can't just listen and just enjoy this album. She was like, you're gonna be sitting with this and you're gonna be like, oh Lord, like you can't just enjoy it. And it's so true. It's like, yes, you enjoy it and you could be like jamming, you're dancing, you're like, this is so good, and then you're like, oh wait a second, hold up, like that just hit me. And like I think in life, like we need those hold on, wait a minute moments. Like let's talk about this, let's deal with this, let's lean in a little bit further. So I love it. Was there a song that you were writing in this that you felt like more of a wrestle than the others, that you're like, okay, this one's actually kind of hard, or was it all just a process?
It was all a process, but honestly, there's
Hmm.
choosing myself and Still Alone. At first, it was one song, so they went into one another. And choosing myself was
Hmm.
really a conversation that I was having with me. When I realized that I had become someone else, I became who I thought I needed to be to
Yeah.
like to just literally be and live and
Wow.
show up as a wife and a mom and a friend and a daughter. I had become something else. And and as the Lord was taking me on this journey, he was like, hello, but
Hmm.
this is who you actually are. And some of this is not good and you need to accept it so that you can move forward. And some of this is amazing and this is who I made you to be, but you've tried to tame that and pull that back so you can be
Mm-hmm.
more palatable
Yep.
to people and what they want. And so I had to confront myself. And so that was one of the
Hmm.
hardest songs I think to release because and not to write because I literally got into my studio and just
Wow.
sang that thing through. So I literally like sang it out and wrote it that way.
Wow.
I did not write it down. I had to go back and transcribe
Wow.
it
That's
after.
cool.
And I'm telling you, and then Still Alone, I did take a little bit more time on, but that one was like, I literally like sang through it. It was a lot for me to release it because I'm like, oh God, are people going to think I'm
Yeah.
schizophrenic, or,
Yep.
are they going to think that I'm crazy? I'm not crazy, but this is the process. I'm having to choose myself. And not
Yeah.
me in a selfish way, like self and flesh. Choose who I actually am and choose to show up as that and hope
It's
that
good.
people will still love me,
Yep.
accept me, like me, because I don't want to be unliked and I don't want to live for the rest of my life, with
Yeah.
people saying you changed or you used to be this way
Yeah.
and now you're not. That was difficult. But if I'm honest,
That's
it's the thing
cool.
I'm most proud of
Come
now for
on.
myself. I'm like, I did it. And I don't have
Yep.
to pretend. And I didn't just let the Lord do the process internally. I let
It's
people
good.
know I'm different now. And it's because I'm going back to who I truly am and who God's made me to be.
That is so good. What a great message. And I totally can relate to that because I write books. And so when I write a book, sometimes you're writing stuff and you're like, oh, this is like so easy to write, but how am I ever going to let anybody else read this? Because this is like so exposing. And what I've found, and I actually gave advice to someone else for this because they came to me, they're like, Sitting about to put out a book, but it's like all my things. And I'm like, oh, and then people are going to think this and that. And I said, to be honest, what I've found with people reading my books is no one, well, I mean, I'm not gonna say no one, probably some people are like, "Ooh, Sadie," no, but some people might be like that. But for the most part, people do not read something like that or listen to something like that and say, "Oh, Naomi struggled with that and she thinks this." They say, "Oh my gosh, I am the same way," or "I can relate," or "Wow, like that's my story." And people begin to see themselves in your story because when people come to listen to your music, of course
Yeah.
they love your music, but they're listening for them, which isn't a bad thing. Like when you're in the car listening to songs, like I'm not thinking of,
Hmm.
oh, this is so and so. I'm thinking, man, I needed this. And so when you're willing to be vulnerable enough to put yourself out there, it's amazing that people aren't like, oh, it's not about you. It's about God. It's about what God's doing in their lives. It's about their story becoming better. So I just love it. You have a song called Brand New, and this quote is so good. I made up my mind that even if I never find the fairy tale ending, it's just a chapter. And I just thought it was so good because so many people are like looking for the fairy tale ending and like on this search for this. And I think a lot of that probably is because of social media, you know, because everything a lot of times looks like a fairy tale. And if your life doesn't look like a fairy tale, then what's wrong with your life? You know, how do you, you know, own where you're at and not microwave the butter to get to the good stuff?
I think it's trusting
That's
the
good.
history. I think you have to start from an initial place of trust, you know, so that you can
That's
get
good.
the actual cookie the way it's supposed to be. Sometimes it comes from failure where you try to make a cookie and
Yeah.
it's like greasy and like burnt on the ends and not good. And so you realize, okay, wait, maybe I did something wrong. Let me try it again, you know? But for me, it is that it's like, oh, this works. This doesn't work. And every day that line
That's good.
gets me. When I listen to back to the music, that line always gets me because it's difficult. I think every day I need my
Yeah.
mind renewed to remember, like, okay, Jesus, whatever you have for me is what will be, and it doesn't have to be like what I see in someone else's life. I'm actually living my dream.
That's good.
You know, like I'm literally living in the fulfillment of everything. And I didn't want much. All I wanted to do was
Yep.
sing. And I think I added on the end, I was like, but Lord, can I make a little money too so I can take care of my
Yeah.
family? Like
Yep.
that was like like, you know, but even if I can't, I just want to be able to sing and
It's
use my
good.
gifts to glorify you. And so when people see me, they really look at you. That's all that I wanted. And when I think about the bad things that are going on in my life, I'm still like reminded of like,
Yep.
oh no, like this is
Yep.
actually still a great story
It's
and
good.
I'm
It's
going to be
good.
okay, you know?
That's great. So I know there was a moment in your life I heard somewhere, and I might botch this because I don't know a lot about this, but it's like you had a moment where you had, was it polyps or something on your vocal cords? Okay, so that's obviously one of those moments where it's a chapter of your
Yeah.
life that's so hard, and it's coming at like the thing that you're gifted to do and you're called to do. Like, take us to that because so many people that might not be what they have, but they have something that is coming like directly at what God has called them to do. And that's confusing when that happens, you know?
But Sadie, here's the thing. Remember the story I told you when you asked about Pour Me Out and like how it got me through? So, in the midst of that, I got diagnosed with those polyps. And it was so painful to sing. I went to voice therapy and she was like, sometimes we can, you know, use therapy to get polyps down, but you need surgery. I went to the ENT. I did all the things that were like, yeah, you need surgery. You can't sing for this amount of time. So we're going to schedule it for here. I was distraught. Do you understand? Because I'm like, how is this going to happen? I hate the idea of this. Don't put a knife to my vocal cords. This is all I have. But the Lord used that season to help me take my identity out of singing, right? But this is what happened. When my surgery was scheduled was the same day that I had gone to that Dove showcase.
No way.
Yes. And when you brought it up, I was like, oh my goodness, I forgot the testimony. That's how you know God is
That's
good. When
true.
you forget, you know, like when you don't even have to be worried or thinking about it, like he's
Wow.
brought me through so much. I was
Oh my
supposed to be
gosh.
getting surgery. And in faith, the Lord was like, what are you going to do? He asked me, he said, what are you going to do? And I was like,
Oh my
okay, I'm
gosh.
going to go here. And I believe you're going to heal me. I went there. I did the things. I ended up going to um, a service. Somebody prayed for me. It was like, honestly, it was like a terrible prayer. And it was like, it was like one of those like, Lord, heal her vocal cords. Amen. I was like, you didn't even say in Jesus' name. Like, wait, like I need you to really pray hard for me. When I tell you, I went back to because my voice started feeling a little better, and I was like, oh, let me go back to the ENT and just check. I didn't think anything happened. When they went back and checked my vocal
No.
cords, the polyps were
Oh
gone.
my gosh.
I'm telling you. like a miracle. I never had to get surgery. I never had those vocal problems again. It was literally a stumbling
Come
block. It was like a
on.
faith test. And I'm telling you, and that's a
Yeah.
miracle that I should really talk about more often. But I don't even remember when
Dang.
exactly it happened because I still had a little bit of struggle after that prayer. It wasn't like my voice just instantly. I don't know when God did it, but I know He did it.
Come on. Okay. Okay. You really should talk about that more. You should definitely talk about that more. That is so cool. But you're also right in the sense of like, God is good when you forget. Because that is so true. Like, okay, like I actually was talking to a friend this morning at breakfast. We were talking about a situation that just happened to me. And it probably should have like made me more upset. But I was like, I'm actually like, I actually kind of forgot it happened. I was telling like one of my best friends about it. And I said, did I tell you this happened to me? And she was like, how did you not tell me that? And I was like, see, you know what's crazy is I think that is just showing how like deeply in the presence of God I am right now, because the similar thing happened to me last year, and that is all I could talk about for 2 months. And then it happened this year, and I forgot. Like I literally didn't even tell one of my best friends. And I was like, that is when you see that God is good. And sometimes God does just, He really does like heal you so much in that moment that you're like, okay, moving on. That's good. Thank you, God. Hallelujah. We're moving forward. But then there is something to being like, no, let me testify for a second, because listen to what God just did. Like that's so cool.
Okay, because I'm over here really encouraged. Like I needed to remember that. And if you didn't say that, I probably would not be this happy right now.
Come on. I love it. I love it. We prayed that joy would come to people, and it's coming. Well, I want to ask you about this because this is so good. You said this with Priscilla on that car chat I listened to, which, by the way, for those listening, if you haven't listened to her car chats, you can find it on her Facebook and her YouTube page, and they are so good. I mean, it truly makes you feel like you're your best friend, oh yeah, we're just hanging, we're just chilling. And because me and Priscilla actually are friends, I felt like I was in this moment. I was like laughing at Priscilla's dances and everything. But you said to her, and it was like this epiphany when you said it. You said, if you love me, obey me. And you're talking about that with the Lord. And you said, I think that might be the greatest gift we have. Like if we obey, if we love him, we obey him. And that might be the greatest gift. And I was like, you know what? That's just a cool thought. And we don't talk about that a lot. So I wanted to bring that up. And I want you to just talk about that for a minute, of what it looks like to walk in obedience with the Lord and the blessing that it brings.
Yeah, I just think the Lord has proven to me over time that the best thing for me to do is obey. And so, some people, they believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy
Yeah,
Bible, right? They don't
that's true.
necessarily believe in the Holy Spirit. And the fact that He is a gift Jesus gives to us, He convicts the world of sin, but He also teaches us. He's the paraclete that comes alongside of us
Yeah.
to guide us and to lead us to where we need to go. And that Proverbs, is it Proverbs 3:4-6?
Yeah.
Which is like, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not to your own understanding, in all your ways
It's
acknowledge
good.
him and he will direct your path. I think obedience is the quickest way to be in the will of the Father, to be used according to your purpose. There are vessels that he just uses. He says these are vessels that are for sacred use, and these are maybe not so sacred use, and we
It's
just
good.
get to be exactly who he's called us to be. And I think that when we are disobedient and not connected to him, it is hard for us to live a life of fulfillment and live in the fullness of everything that he's called us to. And it was an epiphany in that moment, because I've always read that scripture of like, if you love me, you'll obey me, of this thing of like, I have to do because this was going to
Yeah.
be what helps me be accepted to him. But then I think in that moment and in that context, I started to think about how my obedience to him isn't just
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me,
It's
it's
good.
for others. And I think about how one man sinned and sin entered the earth, but then one man died and like freedom, it came to everyone. And I think if we're following and trying to be like Christ, we get to be like that
It's
one
good.
man and love and be obedient to him and not continue in sin, but make this thing that
Yeah.
kind of pushes back a lot of the evil and the darkness of the world,
It's good.
you
I love
know.
that. And you know what? You said this just a second ago whenever you were talking about how you saw that scripture and how you interpreted it. And isn't it crazy? Because you actually mentioned this in the car chat too. You were like, if God actually loved me the way sometimes I view God loves me, then it would be a sad praise. You said if God loved me the way that I love me, it would be a sad praise. And I was like, that is so true, because sometimes, like, I think what we perceive, what we would think God would be saying, because that's how we would say it, then we start to think that God's disappointed, or God thinks or God thinks we're not enough, or God, and that's just not true. That's so far from true. And I get like that too. Like, I had a moment the other day where I just didn't have time. Like, I didn't get up early enough to have time to just spend with the Lord. But then I went to work, and all day long, I honestly sat with the Lord, because I was working on messages, and I was working on prep and all this different kind of stuff, and I was reading the Word, and I was like, at the end of the day, I was so mad at myself for not getting up, and I felt like the Lord was disappointed in me, and I'm like, what is my, like, I, like, that God is not like, well, you missed me this morning, like, as if he was waiting on me and I ditched him for breakfast, whenever It's like, no, we spent all day together. And I think sometimes it's like, we need to make sure that we're checking ourselves whenever we're putting something on God. That's something that God never put on himself. That's something that God would never say, God would never do outside of his character. Well, I've loved this chat. This is so good. I'm so excited for people to hear this, and I'm so excited for people who are listening to go listen to Journey, her new album. And like she mentioned, this whole journey in this album is a process. It's a process of her emotions and things she's thinking about, things she's worshiping through. And I just know it's going to bless all of you guys to take the time to go listen. So excited for y'all to dive into all of that. And Naomi, thank you for just being a great example to so many people. Thank you for leading us in worship. You've literally led global worship, and that is something that I'm so grateful God put on your life to do, because it's blessed me in so many moments. And I'm so grateful for this album. Continue doing all that you're doing, and we are cheering you on as loud as we can.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I could talk to you forever, and this was so nice to be a part of. I love this. Like, thank you.